They took out the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and we live in a world where everything is bet on now.
Yeah. Everybody keep buying yes at this price so we can all not lose. Like, we need to keep the price afloat such that when the market results
for that's insane.
It clearly couldn't because they lost.
You know, Kalshi arbitrarily changed the rules after the fact in this case.
Yeah.
Which is a dangerous precedent.
The Behind the Lines podcast is proud to be sponsored by SXBet, the world's most sophisticated crypto betting exchange. Millions traded every month with 0% fees, all on the chain. Never fight for a withdrawal. Your money is always yours using advanced wallet technology. Fair, transparent, and limitless. Bet on SX.
Welcome in, it's Behind the Lines, purifying sports betting, winning with SX. I'm Shane Gosu in the house, and Pacer is back. On today's show, Kalshi and Khamenei. This is March. Alberta opening for business slowly, and is sports betting as bad as they say? Stay tuned for that a little later in the show. All right, guys, we got to kick it off with big international news. We have seen the U.S. and Israel attack Iran over the weekend. They took out the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and we live in a world where everything is bet on now. And this was no different. And we actually have somebody here on the show who placed a wager on this. So, John, I'm going to hand it over to you here. Tell us what happened with this market, how it played out, and why it's caused such a massive controversy.
Yeah, so I guess this is Saturday morning. And it's about 7 a.m. Mountain Time, and I get a phone call from a buddy, and so I immediately just screen the call and don't answer it. And he calls me back again, and I do the same thing again, and he calls a third time, and so I'm thinking
someone's dead.
Okay, maybe actually I need to answer this because something is wrong, and right. He just, so I answer it, and he said, "Hey, we just bombed Iran. You need to go and bet yes that the supreme leader will be out on Kalshi, because this was February 28th. So they had a market, and they'd had this market up for a long time that said, will the supreme leader be out of his position by X date? And so you could choose, March 1st, February 1st had already obviously resolved to no. There's April 1st and so on, right? And then there's odds associated with that. And so he said, you need to go yes, because we just bombed them. So, and you can still get plus money on yes, he'll be out by the end of March, by April 1st. So I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah. Okay. It's, because it's early for me. And so I go pull up the app, and the first thing I ever do in Kalshi is I read the rules and the fine print of the rules. And in the rules, it says clearly that if he dies before the dates of resolution, then whatever the price was at the time of his death, the contracts will be paid according to that price. So for those who don't know, on Kalshi, and I don't know how this is settled on a lot of other prediction markets, I imagine it's the same. When something quote unquote pushes or would void, it doesn't actually push where everybody just gets their money back that they put in. You get out the money based on the odds at the time that the push or the void happens. So if you consider an MMA fight where it's a draw, if you bet at even money, so you bet 50 cents for a $1 contract, but somebody closed at minus 10,000, so 99 cents on the dollar, and that was your person, even if it's rigged or whatever people say in the UFC when something like that happens and it was determined to be a draw, you would actually still get paid 99 cents of that dollar on that contract.
Essentially winning your wager.
Correct. Yeah. So it pays on whenever something pushes, because that's a two-way money line in that case, you get paid. So that they basically were saying that if he dies, it voids, and they'll pay out and whatever the price was then. Well, all day long on the, and I should note that it's that way because this is a U.S. federally regulated platform, and you cannot make markets or wager on markets related to anyone dying. And you can't wager on anything related to like terrorism. It's basically to like not incentivize these things to happen, right? And so all day after this is happening all morning, so I get up, so I actually go and bet the no. He will not, because I'm thinking, well, I'm free rolling my bet because how are the odds going to get worse unless somebody's propping up the market? Because if he's dead, then the market, I just basically get my money back at the price I bet it because the market's not really moving. Or even better, as time ticks on in the day and it gets closer to March 1st when the bet's going to resolve and he's not out, my price of no is going to actually get better. Or it's going to become more valuable because there's less time for him to leave the position, right?
Right.
So I'm essentially free rolling on a future that can only become more valuable. And worst case, it just stops and pays me out whenever he's confirmed to be dead.
Right.
Well, what happens over the next several hours is that nobody really knows what's going on, right? Different news media outlets are reporting different things and nobody's willing to like commit to saying he's dead. And people on Kalshi, I think about $20 million in liquidity over the next 6 hours was pumped into almost everybody going on the yes side. And people
they didn't read the rules.
People were not reading the rules. And I tried to go on the comment section below. You can comment on the markets below and you can have a dialogue with people. I tried to warn people multiple times. I got flamed extremely hard, as one might imagine.
John, I'll interject here too. By this time, Kalshi had seen what was happening, and they had tweeted out the rules.
Yes, correct. And they actually went and made a note, inserted a note on the page, like a important warning. If he dies, this is how this happens. If he's dead, this is how this will happen. And people still kept betting yes. And so what happened was eventually, I believe it was like Fox News. I think what happened was Trump tweeted that he's dead. And so then they locked the market. But Fox News was also reporting that he was dead, which is one of their verifiable sources or whatever that they would use to settle the market. And so they locked it. And people like, there was still like some wiggle room of time there where people had placed more wagers after that was happening. Because they reopened the market again and then they closed it again. But eventually people were complaining so much because Polymarket doesn't have the same rules. And Polymarket was resolving to yes, that he was out. And so people were complaining. And then their CEO, I think, went on Twitter and basically said, what we're going to do is honor the rules up until the point when he was pronounced or when people were starting to confirm that he was dead. And then we're just going to pay everybody back out after that point. So anyone that thought they were past posting, we're just going to void everything after the past post, if you will. But I understand the resolution because it would be a PR issue for them. But I think no matter what it was going to be, but it's not their fault. Kalshi has rules. They set rules. They're clearly stated. All I did was just copy and paste them into an AI, and the AI helped me understand it when I was at 7 a.m. when I was groggy. Even though it's pretty clear as day what they say. And so I actually was annoyed. So I got paid out at the amount I should have. So all of my stuff was bought early in the morning. And so as it appreciated, I got paid out. I think I made like 8% ROI or something like that. But again, like I said, I thought it was essentially free money. And the people that whined and complained and got their way and got their money refunded because they thought they were past posting and they were past posting something that was actually incorrect. I actually am kind of upset that they caved and did that because to me, it's kind of like you just let the madness of the crowd overtake what are clear and concise rules on your platform. And that is actually more damaging long-term to me than if you would just let all these people lose this money. And what's weird about it is that the people on the forums on Kalshi seem to believe that they're betting like against a Kalshi bookmaker and that there's nobody on the other side. So when you come in with a no, they tell you that people are like, you're an incel. Like you're here on behalf of the man and the establishment to take our money. It's really, really strange that they just couldn't believe that there was someone out there who actually read rules and was willing to take their action. So these are definitely creatures of the internet that were somehow not punished, despite clearly not reading the rules and deserving to be so.
Oh, okay. A lot to unpack here, because I've got to first start off by asking, how did Kalshi decide to refund money when these are supposed to be like a contract between two people or two sides? I don't understand how Kalshi would do that unless they're just saying, we're going to make a donation to these people and just give them money.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I do know that Kalshi, any fee collected on any contract, I believe that was any time placed on that market. So you got to think $60 million in liquidity. They're taking 1% of that. It's a hefty amount of money. They refunded. They basically said, we're just not going to make money on this, which I think is a totally fair thing for them to do. But you're right. It's like if you're, I mean, now granted in their rules, it probably says they probably have some clause that says like, you know, if people are betting on a basketball game and it's already happened, then those contracts really shouldn't be honored because this event had already closed, right? But maybe there was a website glitch that allowed it. And that seems fair to me. But this is such an ambiguous area where it's like you're relying on news outlets to report the death of a person that simply can't be confirmed. Like, I actually don't know how, you know, we can all know that he's dead now, right? It's kind of in the ether, but I don't know how it can actually be truly confirmed without like a body or something, right? If you know what I'm saying,
given the reported method of death.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that there's a technical gray area here that I think they're attempting to try to honor in terms of their contract rules, but it is like, it's something to just simply can't be black and white. It's not like a heads tails coin flip at the Super Bowl where you know the coin landed on heads because we all saw it. You know, like you're taking essentially people's word for something, and honestly, they could only be speculating. So, you know, to a certain extent. So, I don't know how I feel about that. I really just don't think that those people. The only reason this happened is because of the whining, is because people didn't read the rules, and you know, that's what makes me upset about it. If it was just like, hey, this is something we did after the fact, because this is like what our rules actually say of how we should void these bets and put these back out here that happened after the market should have been resolved technically, that's fine. But that's not what it was. When you read the CEO's tweet about it, he's clearly responding to a mass hysteria around this from the people that are betting on the yes side. Like, it's a very targeted response to those people.
And they literally did everything they could. Like, they tweeted out, they put the banner under the market. People are still bet. Like, it's insane. It actually speaks to a bigger issue. You know, you have your provincial and state level regulators for betting. How are these markets regulated? How are these contracts ultimately determined? Like, is it something that, you know, you go to the SEC for because it's more like how does that work? I have I personally have no clue at all. Yeah. And what does this mean for future potential bets from the standpoint of you just being able to change the rules? You know, it seems strange to me.
Yeah. And it's what's mesmerizing about it. I mean, I guess this shouldn't be surprising. You know, again, it's mass crowds on the internet, but the amount of people who thought they were being cheated and that the rules were being changed on them, and then realizing that they'd made a mistake as well. And it was essentially like a GameStop. Like,
I was just going to say, this is like GameStop.
We all must keep betting yes to keep the price. Like, they all realized they were about to get screwed, right? And so then they all start posting like, everybody keep buying yes at this price so we can all not lose. Like, we need to keep the price afloat such that when the market results,
that's insane.
It clearly couldn't, because they lost. And so all the money they were pumping in, they lost even more, you know, at that price, right? So whatever my 8% ROI, they lost 8%, you know?
Oh, so, God.
Yeah, I almost think that there should actually be a complaint. So the regulator in this case is a CFTC, Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the federal regulator for Kalshi and any other prediction market that's going to try to enter the US. And I actually think like people should be complaining to the CFTC saying that Kalshi change the rules. Like you can't just go and change the rules after the fact, which is what it sounds like they did in this case. They actually changed the rules that benefited, to benefit everybody and appease the horde, so to speak.
Yeah, they capitulated.
John, you should be filing a complaint with the CFTC to say, look, Kalshi arbitrarily changed the rules after the fact in this case.
Yeah,
which is a dangerous precedent.
Yeah. Well, if I was one of those people who was late to the party but was trying to take advantage of those people, I definitely would be complaining. If I had not actually gotten anything out of this, and my positions actually settled the way they did, then I would definitely try to find some kind of complaint, or at least like get an answer as to where in their terms of service or rules can they just do this, and get a better answer. But
yeah, like I guess at least they honored the payouts for the no side in the way that it sounds like the way that they should be, and just the yes side, they gave them their money back, which
they just honored it up until a certain point in time, right? I'm not sure exactly what time of the day that was, but it's like anything after a certain time of day, everybody just got set back. Like they basically just voided those contracts.
I wonder what time they would have anchored it to, because in the past, a president tweeting that someone was dead would have been like the be all end all, 100% confirmed the president tweeted it. And when I saw the president's tweet, the first thing that went in my mind was, is this true? Did this actually happen? Do I believe this?
Yeah.
It's like, so I don't know if that's what they would have anchored it to, or, and if you're saying, they go with Fox News as a source, well, the president tweeting it would be enough for Fox News to say it happened.
Right. And I believe that's what happened.
That's what happened.
Yeah, that's the chain of events.
So correct. It's like some Succession shit right now.
Yeah. They locked the market because Trump tweeted it, and then they unlocked it because he's not listed as a source that can resolve the market, but Fox News is.
Wow.
Also, the supreme leader himself was listed as. So they always list the primary source, and like I don't know how that would. It's like. Because it's not for his death necessarily, but he's listed as a source. So like suppose a video came out that was like him, something delivered after he died or whatever, right? That he had prepared, that would have resolved the market. And there was another market. This is totally it's not totally unrelated. It's somewhat unrelated, but there was a market that was like, will Biden make an appearance in the month of whatever? This was like sometime last year, I think, like last October. It was like, will Biden make a public appearance? And Biden was cited as a source that could confirm this. And Biden, his Twitter account tweeted that he was somewhere. Well, it's known that he doesn't tweet for himself.
Right.
But they resolved it to yes. It's like, well, so just because it's his Twitter handle that's verified as him, even though we know it's not him tweeting it, that still counts as him. So there's a lot of like, it's where you just really got to read the rules and understand, because this was a debate that was happening on that market at the time of whether or not, because that account tweeted it, whether it was actually verified that it was, and this market was left open for hours after the fact as well. So you really have to read the rules and understand all of that if you're going to actually put your money the way. I know I've definitely lost some money not understanding rules. So now I'm extremely thorough in things like that.
I got to transition this to sports a little bit. This makes me appreciate the more black and white nature of sports, because we think about like certain moments in time. Like I remember very specifically a Bo Horvat goal when he was on the Canucks, where one clock showed that the goal was good, and apparently a clock in the rink that no one could see at home showed that it was after the fact. The viewers never saw that, so we felt so robbed there. But sports in general are much more black and white. And interestingly enough, because of the volume that we have as bettors, I said to Kay from SX, I said, how does this work when you guys make a mistake? Because we have all seen countless times where a sportsbook posts that the wrong team scored a goal in hockey, or they call a 3-pointer, a 2-pointer, and you have to go back. And they fixed it in the third quarter, and it happened before halftime, which means the first half markets may be potentially settled. And if you're dealing with like your typical sports book, they just go back and switch your balances, right? Like you'll see it. We've all seen that happen to us. We're like, okay, we won, now we lost, or they change the odds, like all the bullshit that they pull, right? Because SX is on the blockchain, once these bets are taken, they are settled, how they end up getting settled, and it is done. There's nothing that can be done about it from that point forward. So Kay did tell me that there had been times where they had to suck it up and actually pay a user out manually. But in general, they've got their system like totally dialed so that if this same situation were to occur on their platform, you know that you are getting paid and there is no recourse to change the odds or change the outcome. It's done, period. Right. So I think that speaks to their platform, but obviously their platform is far more geared towards sports and than it is like all these political markets. Not that they don't have stuff, but it is more of a sports book than it is a place to wager on what color someone's suit is or whether they wore a suit or whatever. But yeah, that whole thing is wild, and I just think like at a bare minimum, it's concerning to know that you can be the person that combs through the rules, be confident in the decision that you make, and then have that taken away from you. I think that's just like so fucked up. Now, the one thing I would say that maybe has a little bit of promise associated with this is that they actually just sided with the majority. They just went, this is the public. They're pissed off. We're going to make that side happy, which I think as bettors, we're not used to.
No.
That's true.
In this case, I don't think this is a good thing.
Yeah. It's like, because the public was wrong. And I think that's what's so frustrating about it. It's like when us as bettors feel like we've been robbed, we feel like we've been right. And we're, the sports book is not siding with us. And now in this case, you've got a math public that's clearly wrong. And the book, even though it's not really a book, is siding with them. It's
bizarre.
It's crazy. Well, really, really fascinating though, to sort of see all of this play out. And we're going to see more of this stuff, right? This is just going to be, like as these markets, these prediction markets take hold, we're going to see more of it.
The best part of this is a guy calling John 3 times that he wants to ignore, that gives him information of like the lock of the century. And he is completely and totally wrong about it. And John, now awake, bets the other side of what his friend called him to bet on.
Yeah.
Which is the best. That really is the best
of the whole story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It was a good conversation with him when I answered the phone, and I'm like, it actually makes sense to bet no based on these rules after reading it.
John, you know what? When he calls next time at 7, you fucking pick that thing up.
You definitely pick it up. You don't necessarily trust what he's telling you to bet, but you pick up the call. Get the information.
As like a sports analogy though, like everybody has these people in their lives. I mean, we all fall into it too, where it's like, it makes so much sense where, so he calls thinking he has news that other people don't have somehow. It's like when people are like, hey, Jason Tatum's out, right? It's a bad example because he's out for the year. Like, hey, Luka's out tonight. We have to hammer the Warriors against the Lakers. It's like, are you the only one that knows? The line, good chance that, that's why the line is the way it is. You might have another reason for that. Like, we'll show some stats about it, but it's like, okay, it's just funny.
Well, you also have to question, like, if you do think about like the whole Wall Street memes and the GameStop and all that kind of stuff, you do have to question how many people that are from sort of like this meme stock era that now bet on these types of things because of the way it's offered to them before, or because the way it's offered to them now, as opposed to guys that like that same potential customer never playing on DraftKings, FanDuel, etc. And now that this world exists, it's like this really nice transition for the crypto trader and the stock trader to actually start betting on maybe some sports, but also a lot of this like world news and other things that are going on. So I do think there is a bit of a bridge there with that community through these platforms. And I think that exposes those platforms obviously to more volume, but also to a higher probability of this type of thing occurring again in the future.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we move along here? But we'll keep the conversation around books. Pacer, you wanted to talk about iBet Sport, and John, I think you're using them too. Am I right?
Well, I was.
You were.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on with iBet Sport? I had never even heard of it. I know, John, I know you were using it because I heard you talk on stream about it, but I didn't really remember exactly what you said other than, maybe they weren't paying you or you had some kind of issue with them. And then Pacer, you messaged me saying we got to talk about iBet Sport. So I don't know if you've been using them too, or if this is just stemming from John and your problem with them.
So my story with them was I went and deposited like my typical $2,000 or $3,000, and I did withdraw the money shortly thereafter, like almost instantly when I was playing, because you couldn't see the maximum bet when until you had money in the account. So I put the money in the account. The maximum bet was like $100 or something like that, and I think I spun a bet. And I cashed out, and they did give me my money, and I'm pretty confident I did not roll it over. There's a chance though that I had to make a bunch of NFL parlays and shit, and I just rolled it over and I got my money back. So from that point going forward, I got put on a VIP list, and Phil at iBet Sports, ironically, this is where the story comes full circle.
Oh, here we go.
It is Phil from Jazz.
It's the same Phil, isn't it?
But this is the thing. When I played on iBet, it was before they were owned by the same company.
Okay.
So this is bigger than iBet. This is Jazz Sports, the company that is, we had Prashan on the show to tell us his story about about Jazz. They're scamming people, and they've increased their operation by going and buying up a bunch of these small shitty books. So anyways, my name is Phil Akron. I am your VIP account manager at iBet Sports. And John and I both got these emails like dozens, if not hundreds of times. We want to welcome you to our site. And I'm like, this site I was on like a few years back. Like, why are they emailing me now? And anyways, I'm a VIP, right? So here's the promotion I have for you. Deposit this, rollover, blah, 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 all the usual bullshit that they do. And of course, I respond back saying the same thing that I always do. I say, my limits are too low. I'm interested in coming back if you can increase them. So John calls me and he says, hey, Phil from iBet Sports just increased my limit to $1,000 a bet. And I was like, oh, I'll go back if I can spin $1,000. That sounds great. I never went back. I kind of had it on a list that I'm like, I'll go there when I need to. But right now, those particular lines I have covered elsewhere. So this is where, again, John's got to take over the story because it happened to him. So,
yeah, I mean, it's so like same thing. I deposited money once I got the invite back the invite to bet more. Right. So I played through quite a bit of pregame. I had lost the initial deposit, which is why I was able to get the higher limits. So deposited, played through, still bet some pregame, to keep it looking like that's what I was doing, parlays and stuff. Actually, like was breaking even doing it. Then I went, made a few live bets. I think I made 3 live bets, actually lost 2 of them, won 1 of them. So I actually lost money betting live. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was like NBA main markets. I want to say 6-7 minutes left in the game. It's not like I was, it was a late line or whatever, right? Like it's still, the game's still got plenty of time left.
Right.
They took live betting away from me. Immediately, it was just removed from the menu. And so it's like, that's weird. Well, I made a pregame bet on it the next day because they had a line that I liked. They had the best juice that I could find on a line. Won that. So I'm up like a lifetime. I'm down. I'm actually like still down from losing the initial deposit, but the new deposit, maybe I'm up like $600 or something. And then I go to log in, or I was like fishing around on the website, went to their like payout section. I was like, well, it's time to get out of here. Like, if they're not going to let me live bet, fishing around on the payout section, got to the whole KYC part or whatever. And, was like, okay, well, I'll do that later. I don't have my like stuff with me. So I just like, pencil it in for the next day. So I come back the next day, try to log into the book because it's auto logged me out of my browser, and apparently I don't have an account anymore. So I just had my account my email is no longer associated with an account. I replied to the emails from before asking like, hey, where'd my account go? Nothing. So they just stole my money and deleted my account. Is what it seems to have happened. So that's so a first for me of like in an amount that small to just like close an account, take your money.
And you were actually down on the account overall.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But they saw something that indicated, oh, this guy might get his money back.
No, well, separately of that though, Shane, they're also seeing that he's looking to maybe pull his money.
And he's looking to pull out what he has in there.
So they're doing this to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're whoever you are. Deposit as much as you want when it comes time for you to pull your money out. Might do a little bit of a calculation where they go, oh, this guy's in for 10. He's looking for 1. Let's pay him. Let's give him that 1,000. It's worth the risk for us.
Right.
But anything real, they're just gonna close the account. So Jazz in particular was a site that I did trust. They had been around for like 30 years.
Yeah.
I had played there. I had been paid. Their spinner and shit, like it was bad. It wasn't like this great interface to go play on.
And it's one of those where the spinner gets worse as you play there, and as you go on, the spinner gets worse and worse. And
then I guess this company they changed, and then that whoever this company is, they're going and buying up some of these sort of small shitty offshore sites. They're moving them all to Costa Rica if they aren't already. So that's a big indicator. There's just absolutely no recourse. They know it, and they're just stealing as much money from people as they can. I don't think they're getting a lot of traffic, but I do think that anyone that's playing offshore, you're kind of always sort of looking like, okay, what's next? And Jazz was on a lot of lists. They're not on the lists anymore. They're gone, right? And it's because of this reason, but just be careful if you see Costa Rica, and if you get an email, because these guys share information. If you get an email from a guy named Phil Akron, and it'll change, right? Like he might change his name, but just be super careful when it comes to that kind of stuff. Do the research that you need to do. Thankfully, John didn't lose a ton of money. But like if you run up a balance somehow and slip through the cracks, they aren't going to fucking pay you.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's absolutely, like you said, being regulated out of Costa Rica, not much of a regulator there. Really, it sounds like the regulator in Costa Rica is just set up so that these people can say, or that these operations can say they're regulated somewhere, and they do absolutely nothing. And so, yeah, that's really shady. I wonder like how many books they're trying to acquire to do this too. Nuts. Wow. All right. Have you guys tried Ozune?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's it looking? Because we've seen some people in the Discord and on stream, saying it's not so great. I haven't tried it myself, but I'm curious.
There's nothing to say. It's the exact same as Bodog. So I've looked into this actually quite a bit. So we when one of the books that first approached us when back in the stories that we have of like Bet99 and all that kind of stuff was Bodog. So we know about who their brands are. They never changed ownership. So it's still Ozune, Bovada. I'd have to look up the names. Fortune Casino. There's a few. They have like Ignite Poker. There's a few brands that are all under this same umbrella, the same ownership. I had wondered when this change happened. Obviously, when we first brought it up, I was in Hawaii and I was like, I wonder if it got bought. I wonder if the odds providers changes, this, that, the other. The list all goes on from there. That isn't the case. They're still under the same umbrella as they previously were. The big thing is the license did change. So when we were on that podcast, they still had the CGA Curacao Gaming Authority up on their site. It still is there. It's there right now. So if you go to ozune.eu and you scroll to the very bottom, it says CGA, but you can't click on it. And then it says Ozune is operated pursuant to a current gaming license and is overseen and regulated by the Tobique Gaming Commission, which I know nothing about. Now, I had a balance there. That's actually where I made that Macklin Celebrini top goal scorer in the Olympics bet at 26-1. So that was a small bet that I made, but I did max the market. It was 400 wins 10,000. So once the change happened, I ran that 10,000 because that was all I had in the account. It was just a pending future. I ran that balance up to about 16, so about 6 more thousand. And I was like, I'm just going to test a withdrawal. And I actually did that last night before the show. They paid it immediately, which is good. However, I have a couple of different stories. The first story is, I'm just going to say there is a person who was middling Bodog to themselves. So either they were offering 2 different lines, like you know how sometimes they'll offer Pinnacle and 365 lines, or they were pass posting the line when a basket would go in, taking it, and then once the odds adjusted, taking it on the other side.
Gotcha. So they were using the book and just middling on the book itself.
Yes. So this person, we are talking about potentially 7 figures.
Wow.
When they moved from Dog to Ozune, they pulled all the money out of the account. So that is now a legal case that I have helped get facilitated for this person. And it's that one's tough.
I'm shocked that they were able to run up a balance that high middling on the book. Like, how did they not catch on? That's insane. That alone is just nuts.
Yeah, but all the money's gone. And then I've had someone contact me about them changing odds after the bet was accepted since they switched over. I don't have proof of it. I have proof of the other one. And I heard they even voided a Super Bowl ticket, but again, I don't have proof of that. I know that there's a lot of people in their Discord, like Ozune has a Discord, and they are just fucking bashing the shit out of this site. It doesn't load very well. It's super clunky, but the thing is Shane, ultimately, it's the exact, nothing has changed. It is Dog, and it's just same line, same everything.
It's always been a terrible interface, a terrible UI experience.
It's gotten worse. It's got also, like I said, go check any limits I had on markets. They've all carried over, so everything's the same.
Yeah. Okay, so you're still fully limited. The Tobique Gaming Commission, that is a First Nation in New Brunswick.
Interesting.
So they're being regulated out of a tiny little First Nation, which I guess for those that aren't familiar with the term First Nation, some of our American audience members, that would be like an Indian reserve. So we're talking a tiny little reserve in New Brunswick.
Next to the fireworks stand, if you want to go talk
exactly. To them. Big time. I bet you they're selling like tobacco out of the same building that has
the Tobique gaming license. They might own downtown Vancouver at this stage. So you know, there's a small First Nations thing now in BC where they've taken a bunch of like land rights. So that's a totally different discussion from sports betting. But I found out yesterday that my condo is in the window. So they say it doesn't affect private property, but it does affect our lakes, oceans, rivers, parks, all that kind of stuff. So
interesting.
Welcome to Canada, baby.
Yeah, that's the fact that a big company like Dog and the umbrella company there would go to this tiny little First Nation in New Brunswick to get regulated. That's very suspect right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some strange stuff going on. To the other side of things, the regulated market, we've got some news for our friends in Alberta. It's coming. It's coming. We've been saying this here on the show. They've probably been hearing the news in Alberta that their regulated market, it's coming. It's coming. But Penn Entertainment and Scorebet have applied for their license. And not only that, they are already letting people in Alberta sign up. So if you live in Alberta, you can go and sign up at the Score. You can actually go and register at a regulated book. You won't be able to bet there just yet. But the CEO, Jay Snowden, said he expects the market to go live sometime around mid-year. That hasn't been firmed up yet, but that's what we're anticipating, is what he said. So on track for Alberta, mid-year. We've been saying that, spring, summer, somewhere around there. And now we've got the CEO of Penn coming out and saying that they expect it, to be up and running then. And they're taking customers.
I love the soft date because when Ontario got licensed, Alberta said they were like 4 months away.
Yeah.
Midyear. I love the midyear reference.
Yeah, midyear. Yeah. And it's only been about 5 years since Ontario got fully.
This is like really deep sports betting knowledge for like the real pro bettors. People, whenever they travel, we always get messages like, "Hey," or in our Discord, like, "Hey guys, I'm going here. What can I do for betting?" We had a member from Michigan that's actually nearby here for his kids' hockey tournament. He was asking, like, "Hey, how can I use my US Sportsbooks while I'm there?" Well, for me, when I go to the States, I use my cell data on Safari on my iPhone. And that essentially makes it seem like I'm in Canada. And if you search when you're in the States or anywhere traveling outside of Canada and you're on your cell data, not Wi-Fi, and you type in on Google, "What is my IP?" It'll show you a map that shows you where the cell tower it's connected to the US that it pings back to make it seem like you're actually in Canada. This does not pass geolocation for the regulated books in Ontario. But I'm upset that Alberta is being regulated, because if I get pinged back to Ontario when I'm in the States, I have to turn my airplane mode off and turn it back on to ping me to a different province. And oftentimes it'll ping me into Red Deer, which is in Alberta. Oh. So now I don't want, now that's another place I'm going to have to flip through my phone to try to land in Montreal or Vancouver or wherever. So I might have a few more IP flips while I'm in the States. But so hopefully that helps you as a bettor, if to know that you can do that. Number one. And number two, once this goes live, Alberta will be a spot that will block a lot of that because of the geolocating in Ontario and in Alberta. And the reason for that is because regulated states and provinces have a different version of that site. So Ontario has a different Bet365 than the rest of Canada. And the same goes for the rest of the regulated books that operate outside of Ontario and in Ontario.
Yeah. And I can tell you that it's usually not better. Even though we have all the books, I don't want to be a guy in Ontario complaining about books here. That's not the case. But I can just say, our FanDuels, our DraftKings, it's never the same as what the guys in the States have. You guys always got more in the States than we do here when it comes to markets. Yeah, always.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, something to know. Yeah. Okay.
Depends on the state.
Depends on the state. Yeah, here, you're right. Probably depends on the state. Yeah.
Tennessee, we didn't have anything.
There you go.
Some of that is the regulators, though, Shane. Like Arizona, I know if when we're betting on college football, Arizona will have a very different set of markets on the same book than the rest of the country because of the regulations there.
Yeah, especially in the States. I know college sports really big discrepancies depending on what you can and can't do and who you can bet on, who you can't bet on, props, all that sort of stuff when it comes to college. Yeah. All right. I'm going to pivot topics here a little bit. This is making news here in Ontario today. A big study that came out from, I think it was the Canadian Medical Association, published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. And here's the big headline. Okay. And this is put out by the Canadian Press. So it goes out to all media across Canada, and everybody can report on it. But they're specifically looking at Ontario here. And the headline is, "More young men contacting Ontario gambling helpline, new study finds." Okay. And the anti-sports betting narrative out there, and Pace, you brought this up with Danny Funt when we had Danny on a couple of weeks back, whether he faces pressure to push a certain narrative when it comes to sports betting. And I would say here on the show, I think we've done a really great job at presenting both sides, talking about the ills of sports betting, talking about the dark side of it, the pitfalls and all of that sort of stuff. So I want to come at it, though, from the perspective here that this is starting to reach a point of hysteria now in the mainstream media. And this study coming out and the way that it's being reported today really got me going, like, this is reaching like a whole new level. And every time I go and I look at sports betting news out there, I am seeing at least one or two opinion pieces, whether it's here in Canada or in the States, about how sports betting's terrible. It's a plague on society. It's an ill. And I just want to let me talk about this study first before sort of I get into the bigger picture. So the study analyzed the number of contacts to Connects Ontario. That's who we would call if we've got a gambling problem. Connects Ontario. It's at the bottom of all the regulated books. It's out there. They've got to promote it. And 24-hour mental health and addictions helpline for gambling concerns. So First off, it says that there's been a rise. Now, we entered a regulated market in April 2022. Okay, that's when Ontario went fully regulated. But we've had Proline in the province forever, since '92. Okay, so you've been able to bet on sports in this province for a long, long time. So it noted an increase after January 2015 when it first launched its PlayOLG. Okay, which was sort of like revamping Proline a little bit. But the study looks at January 2012 to September 2025. So you're talking a 13-year period, okay, of which only about 3.5 years is part of the regulated market.
Right.
Okay. So right off the bat, it's like we're not really looking at things we're not putting it in context when we broaden out the study to be this massive horizon of 13 years. And so then it goes over this 13-year period. Researchers looked at Connects Ontario was contacted more than 745,700 times. Okay, so right off the bat, it's like, let's find the biggest number we can find in the study, 745,000. Okay, oh wait, and about 37,000 of those were gambling related. Okay. Gambling related, not even necessarily sports betting related, but gambling related, which we have casinos. You can go to Niagara Falls. There's casinos there. Yeah. I've got a casino about an hour north of where I live. That's pretty popular too. And these are just gambling related. But the headline, going back to it, makes it seem like it's all about sports betting and it's all connected to the regulated sports betting market. And at the same time, okay, so that's making news. We've got an opinion piece in the Toronto Star just published. Betting on sports, here's the headline. Betting on sports has gone from a fun activity to a plague on society. This is who it's hurting most. And then, this guy outlines his arguments for why it's so terrible and how young men are getting caught up in sports betting and, draining accounts and this and that. And, it just seems to me, though, that sports betting, I think, because it is so front and center, because we all watch sports, and we're seeing it more, has really become kind of like this whipping post, for anybody out there that wants to just, take aim at something for whatever reason, and when we see these kinds of reports coming out, they just seem to be constantly getting blown up. I think because sports betting is in front of our faces more often, and any kind of study that comes out that highlights any kind of harm gets blown up like, oh my God, it's all because of sports betting. Really what we're talking about is gambling in a more general sense here. And I don't know about you guys, if you guys are sort of starting to see the same thing I am. And it's not just here in Ontario, but I'm seeing headlines from all over the place, parts of the States, different publications. So not just here in Ontario, but I think we're reaching this sort of tipping point where it's like, you can't just keep blaming sports betting for people's gambling problems. Do you know if it's sports betting for one? Could it be other forms of gambling, poker, online casinos, in-person casinos? And why are we looking at why are we taking aim at that when we could focus on a lot of other major problems we have in society? Like, how about alcohol consumption? Alcohol is probably one of the most dangerous vices we have. And nobody ever takes aim at that or gets upset about it. Smoking. Yes, there's a big public campaign against it, but I think that's kind of died off. And we've even legalized marijuana over the years, and that's out there. Nobody takes aim at that product. I think there's a lot of vices out there in society that don't get put under the microscope the way sports betting does. All right, rant over.
What I find interesting about it is the 37,000 is the only relevant number in the 37,000 is the increase from the time of regulation to the time prior. It sounds like that wasn't even highlighted. Exactly. That wasn't even highlighted. They just did this whole big 13-year period. They just tried to just grab a bunch of numbers. If anything, any of the stuff pre-regulation, so those first 8 years of the study or whatever the fuck you want to call this, that data would just be good to set like a baseline.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Separate them maybe. Yeah. Right? Like break them up and say, here's what it was before, here's what it is after.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What it reminds me of is the online video game hysteria and panic in like the mid 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of it it stems from it's people who don't do the activity.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. Because so they don't understand it. They don't understand the mentality of the people that do it. And they don't understand how much of an outlier the extreme negative cases are. Right. So like, I think about the World of Warcraft South Park episode, right, was like kind of making fun of how like how hysterical the whole culture around it was. And I just remember like my mother watching some like Dateline news show about video game addiction, and they were highlighting this like Chinese guy who played in an internet cafe for 4 days straight without sleeping and died of a heart attack. And I'm like, I don't think the video games are the problem. I think if he read for 4 days straight and consumed only Red Bulls, he would also have had a heart attack and died. Right. So, it's like, I understand that the addictive behaviors would led him to do that, but that's kind of that's what it reminds me of.
That's a great comparison.
All of that's gone. And the irony of it all is that the generation of people and the demographic of people who were most concerned about it have now been crippled significantly by their addiction to Facebook and other relevant types of apps that are like that. So they've actually been, I think, harmed in a greater way than the people that they were feared for during that time. So that's always what this kind of stuff reminds me of, because that was something that was, growing up in that time frame.
There was that, the addiction element, right? And then there was also the hysteria around the violent video games and how they promote violence, and they're going to make our boys more violent. And it's like, no, it didn't.
When
didn't
violence and testosterone has dropped year after year after year for decades in the West. I think it's pretty well documented now at this point.
Yeah. That's a great one to compare it to. So yeah, I wonder if we'll look back in 20 years and be like, oh, remember when we were all losing our minds over sports betting? Yeah. Crazy stuff. Well, guys, we've covered a lot of like book related things and sort of controversies and that sort of stuff. Why don't we move into actual betting and we'll get into upcoming hype. I'd call it upcoming, but this is March. We're here, and it's time. I mean, March Madness is a couple weeks away. The big tournament. We've got all the little tournaments that are sort of getting underway and happening already, and we're just an exciting time. Pace, I think this might be the only time of the year where you bet on college basketball. Am I right?
I have made some bets this year on college basketball, but I think it's less than 10.
Less than 10, which is like nothing.
Yeah. So I'm excited for some great opportunities in these next couple of weeks. Real bettors know that March Madness doesn't start in the tournament. It's like you said, Shane. It's already started. These next 2 weeks, the difference is, are there great opportunities in the tournament? And the answer, of course, is yes. But the volume is extremely low because you always have one game coming in at a time. Whereas these 2 weeks, we have 300 elimination games, coming through in these next couple of weeks. I guess some of them technically wouldn't be elimination games because some of those teams are actually going to be in the tournament already. But this week they aren't, right? And next week, a lot of them aren't. And I love those little stories of like the teams that actually have a shot at winning their conference that wouldn't be in. And we saw that last year where, we're sitting here and you've got this team that has to win the tournament and they upset some like, the major schools. I can't remember who it was last year in one of the Power Four conferences that won to get into the tournament. But those storylines are really great to take in with you because people love those Cinderellas once the tournament's actually started. But it's nice to have that the storylines of how they got in the first place as well.
Yeah, that's always a lot of fun to watch. John, how much college betting are you doing? When did you start, and are you ready to ramp up?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it on and off. I was actually doing a little more when the season started, just finding markets and book. Like, I'm mostly in the offshore and in the exchange markets now. So like finding, opportunities to actually bet the games and be able to get a significant amount of money down on the games can be challenging. But that's true. And if you're using regulated books, I mean, that it's like some of the limits on some of these games it's like, why offer the game? If you're only willing to take $80 on a line, it's just don't even offer the game. So I was actually doing a little bit. I've done pretty well. But definitely getting more handle down during these tournaments is a boon. And looking on exchanges like Kalshi, just the amount of money on even the shitty little games has really ramped up over the last couple of weeks. I think it's just people, college basketball is a seasonal sport. Like everybody cares in March Madness, but only real hardcore fans care elsewise, right?
Which also is a bad thing for us. It really is, because we stick out like sore thumbs.
Yeah, during the regular season, especially before conference play and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing a decent amount, trying to get more into it now in the next few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I want to highlight something that I've kind of noticed over the last few years of betting college sports. And I don't know if you guys will find it the same too, but I bet, I don't know, that also depends on whether you bet women's or not. So I bet women's college basketball as well as the men's college basketball. And what I've noticed over the last few years is that certain days of the week are for the men and certain days of the week are for the women. And so let me give you like an example. Okay. On the weekend, okay, Saturdays are for the men. Okay. We've got tons of games. Volume is extremely high for men on Saturday. And on top of that, you've got the more competitive matchups. You've got the sort of matchups where they're likely to lead to the game scenarios we're looking for wagers. And you've just got more of them on the men's side. And while the women are playing, there's games, there are far fewer opportunities on the women's side on Saturday. And then it's reversed on Sunday. On Sunday, you've got the volume goes down for men, the quality of the matchups goes down, and the volume for women goes up, and the quality goes up. And so I've found this to be kind of something I've just sort of noticed over the years, and now I'm like planning my betting weeks around it, where it's like, oh, today's Saturday, I'm going to focus more on the men. And then tomorrow's Sunday, I'll focus more on the women. And it really, trust me, if you go out there and watch and look, you're going to notice it. And, same thing like early in the week, Monday's almost like a write-off for both. You might get a little bit of men, you get no women. Tuesday, you get a little more. And then kind of as the week goes on, you can start to sort of notice that these patterns emerge. Anyway. Something I wanted to put out there for the audience. Hopefully it helps them as they kind of try to plan out their days and weeks over the next month here.
It's an exciting time.
Yeah. I want to say, just add briefly on the subject of like women's sports and like intertwining with men's sports. When you look at the success, and this is something I've said about women's sports and like in all other contexts and other sports as well. When you look at the most successful women's sports, tennis is the obvious main one that, I would, globally, it's almost as popular as men's tennis. It's up there, especially compared to other sports and how they relate. Incredibly popular. In the United States, it's probably been more popular because the United States has been more successful in women's tennis winning, right, with the Williams sisters. But March Madness in particular, how popular women's college basketball is right now, especially in the March Madness timeframe, it's because it's scheduled in and around and complementary to the men's sport at the same time. Right. Women's and men's tennis tournaments are played collectively together, oftentimes, especially in the majors. In the majors, I should specify, they're that way, which is where most people care. The college basketball tournaments are scheduled around the same time frame. People care about them both at the same time. If other leagues, other women's sports want to do this or follow the success of those sports, they should try to schedule complementary to the men's leagues, not in the off season of the men's leagues, because it's not a replacement. It's a complementary sport to it. It's evident that this is this pattern for success. Just a PSA for people out there that are in charge of these leagues that aren't going to listen. But that is the path to success. The WNBA is doing great right now. It would be even better, in my opinion, if it were somehow intertwined in with the NBA season and not in the summer when nobody's watching it, when people are doing other things. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Interesting take. Yeah, I think that's really only directed at the WNBA. I can't think of another women's league off the top of my head that sort of goes counter to the men's league. Do you know what I mean?
But the thing is, though, is separately of the league specifically, I think there are some, because of our like unrelenting high focus on some of these leagues, we do see areas of improvement, and the WNBA is like at the top of that list.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. All right, guys. Well, fun stuff here. Anything else you guys want to add before we sign off? I think that just about does it, though. We covered a lot of ground today.
Let's keep beating those books, Shane.
All right, guys. John, Pacer, sports bettors around the world. Till next week. As Pace said, keep beating those books.
Let's go.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.